Y'all, today we need to talk about some major spell changes that just happened on test run. So there are 3 new spell changes. These are distinct from the ones that we covered last week, the changes to the Myth, Life, and Death Aquala spell. Today we're going to be talking about the new Ice and Balance Aquala spell and Poison. And I'd argue what all 3 of these spells have in common is they were the most contentious in terms of feedback during test run. People either thought that these spells were useless or kind of overpowered. But what they've decided on is not insignificant, starting right off with the new Ice Aquala spell. It looks like we have a new top path to look at. This used to be a hit and double trap. And here's the thing, it's not like a double trap is necessarily bad. It's just Ice has been bombarded with trap spells for a while now. We're looking at Shoe, Wyvern, Frost Giant, Colossus, Deer Mouse Trap. Right, for a mitigation-based school to get so many traps, I think it would have just been repetitive to get a 9-pip hit and double trap. So now it looks like they made it into a very useful utility, a hit that also removes up to 8 blades on the opponent. Now, why do I think this is actually such a big deal, right? One, this is useful in PvE. I would argue in advanced content with blade cheats, right? That's like challenge mode, raids, and just honestly any, like, you know, support role where you have to remove blades. This is the new best blade removal spell, but it's also very useful in PvP. Unlike other blade removal spells, you're not turning the blades into something else that could further be used against you, right? Unlike the bottom path of the spell, which turns blades into ice traps, sometimes people will blade stack wanting you to turn them into traps, and then they'll have a plan for it. This kind of just erases the blades, kind of resets the board state, I guess. I like that both options exist. I will say this, there are certain strategies that I would call straight up broken that involve blade spamming while using an off-school hit. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's gone against this. It's actually mildly crazy how this, you know, still exists. There are strategies where mainly life wizards, they'll run off-school, like, you know, like they'll run like a bunch of off-school damage, off-school pierce, and they'll just blade up and go for a one-shot. And the problem is the best blade counter that we currently have in the game turns blades into school-specific weaknesses, right? If you scarecrow somebody that's a life-running myth and they do a bunch of myth blades, you're gonna turn a bunch of myth blades into life weaknesses. They just keep blading and they ignore the weaknesses. So the best mitigation against blades doesn't really work against people that are cosplaying. That's what that strategy is called. Now, all it really takes is for people to get the spellmans to upgrade this once and pack a couple of these in main deck and be willing to change their pips to ice when they go against it. That strategy has the most valid counter we've ever seen. I don't think it's uncommon at all, especially other schools that blade stack, right? Not just cosplay. It's not uncommon at all to see a couple of single blades and a couple of triple blades thrown in, and let's say someone does do 2 single blades and 2 triple blades. This spell will remove all of that in one go, so you can get like 3 to 4 rounds on your opponent if they just go heavy on blades. I kind of hope that they do the same thing with a trap clear, maybe for life or fire. I don't know when we'll see this. I think this spell needed to exist for the sake of the balancing of this game. I'm glad that we finally have it. I think this is a useful top path compared to what we had before. Now let's talk about something that's kind of crazy to look at. The Balance Aquala spell. I'd argue this was the other one that a lot of people had issues with. The previous top path of the spell was a double blade. That was basically it. It hit and then double bladed. Now it looks like it has a brand new utility. Now, if y'all are wondering what the hieroglyphics on your screen are right now, this is a new mechanic. It's a weakness dilution. Now, in case y'all are wondering, what in the world is a dilution, right? This is actually a relatively recent part of the balance identity that I guess the devs are trying to, like, you know, add to Balance's toolkit, or anyone that's using Balance as a secondary. It's a thing called dilution, and the idea is, right, you basically turn a bunch of blades or a bunch of weaknesses, I guess in this case, or even a bunch of traps. You turn them all into a bunch of universal traps, but you don't clear them. And I think the idea behind it is that, let's say someone is, like, you know, deviously blade or trap stacking. The idea is that you make all of those buffs just a singular weak buff while keeping the number of buffs on them constant. And by doing that, you can take advantage of spells that give you pips when your opponent has a lot of hanging effects, right? Let's say a Myth were to blade into a Spirit Blade. You dilute all those 4 blades into 4 weaker 20% blades. Let's say that you were to do that and then you're being threatened with less damage facing you, and you're also getting a bunch of pips because this spell gives you a power pip per blade on your opponent. So I think they're taking the dilution idea and saying, yo, if someone's weakness spamming you, you can use a new Aquala spell to basically turn every weakness into a -15 universal weakness, and then you can maybe do something like echo them, right? There's no spell that gives you pips per weakness that you have on yourself, but there is a spell that threatens having a lot of weaknesses on you. It's kind of the same concept. I'm gonna keep it so real with y'all. I think Dilution is a corny ass concept. I think it overcomplicates the game. I think it's an unnecessary thing to be adding to a school that already has echoes. It already has swaps. It already has pip stuff. It already has other schools that it uses to do damage. Right? Balance already has a lot. I feel like this is just confusing as hell to look at. I don't even know what the concept of this would be in PvP. Like, if someone maybe were to, like, threefold spam you, maybe you could clear it into 15 weaknesses and hit through them so they don't have threefolds on you. I don't really know. I don't really get it, to be very, very honest. I feel like balance is in a weird spot because school-specific weaknesses don't work on balance. Right? Let's say that you were to scarecrow a balance with blades. It wouldn't put -35 balance weaknesses the way that it would put, like, life weaknesses if a life bladed and you scarecrowed. They get a weaker universal weakness put on them, so by being a balance, they already have to worry about weaknesses less. So I don't really get why an anti-weakness tool is being, you know, pushed on them in the Aquala update. This is a complicated spell. I don't see it being used very easily. Maybe complicated is good. I get why adding more options kind of increases the vibrancy of the game. I'm just not sure how much you could practically use this. They didn't change the bottom pad. The bottom pad is still a blade echo. Very, very similar to Raw. It's just punishing someone for having a lot of blades, but instead of getting pips like Raw gives you, you just get a bunch of blades. I think both of these pads are pretty useless. I think you're almost always better off Rawing compared to bottom pad. I think you're almost always better off just using your pips to King Art instead of top pad. It's redundant considering what we already have at the exact 8 pips that this spell is, so I'm not really sure we'll see anybody using the new Terminus spell. Very unfortunate. Hopefully there's still time to change it since it is test run. Now, I described a lot of the spell changes today as contentious, and that is mainly because of poison, in my opinion. Now, unlike the other 2 spells that we just talked about, I don't think this was changed because people thought it was useless. I think people thought it felt too good. And if you guys are in the dark about the poison change, right, basically poison is a damage over time on a school that doesn't have damage over time identity. When a school like Death with all of its damage output gets an overtime like this, when it's supposed to be weak against shields, this spell, the top path version of it anyways, kind of breaks a lot of interactions. They made the top path, which is a dot, no PvP, and they made the bottom path a very powerful utility, a harmful aura clear. Now, y'all are gonna have to take my word for it, right? But it says that it turns a harmful aura on self into 2 blades, but what this spell has been changed to do is turn a harmful aura on self into a harmful aura on the opponent. So this is actually what the card does based on current test run files. I guess it's still subject to change, but there's some big takeaways from that. You might actually aura a death. They'll literally hit and turn the aura that you put on them into a harmful aura on you. And then, especially with tools like Pluto's Peril, the new death spell, Death has ways to use having a harmful aura on you against you. Right, this spell, if you have a harmful aura on your opponent, this spell hits and then turns that aura into shields. So we could see like aura into shield happening on a death. It could be ridiculous, so I think there are combos that people aren't seeing. But the previous version of this in test run was also extremely good. Clearing a harmful aura for blades is nuts. This little aura utility, it's better against certain schools, like I'd say fire. If a fire trap auras you and you turn it into an aura on them, you could probably remove a furnace while doing it. And even if they furnace over it, there's still things that Death could do against auras like that. Right, it could create some serious counterplay that I don't mind. But I would argue the best school against Death right now is balance, and they're super hard carried by the fact that they can brace, and if you trap aura, then they can chameleon. So it would have been nice to turn a harmful aura that a balance put on you into something that a balance can't punish as easily, but a balance can punish a harmful aura on themselves a lot more easily than they can punish blades on their opponent. So I would argue the new version of poison that's in test run right now is actually kind of a nerf compared to what we were expecting, but we never really got it in live realm, so could we really call it a nerf? I don't know. All in all, y'all, the big winner here is definitely Ice. I think Ice actually got a very useful PvE and PvP spell with this change. I think Balance got a nothing burger of a spell, and that still got a new utility. They just have to use it in a much more complicated way than originally because blades are so easy to use. We are in week 3 of test run, y'all. I think these spell changes are close to what we're gonna receive, at least in their first form in live realm. So hopefully we'll see them, you know, actually add something to the meta. Hopefully it's something that everyone could get some use out of. Let me know what y'all think of the spell changes that happened today. The Ice spell, the Balance spell from Aquala, and Poison. Y'all like these changes? Y'all hate them? I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.